And then I asked ChatGPT to give me the top worst things about owning a team.
This is good.
The top 5 worst things. And I've got their little list here, and I think it's spot on, but what do you think the top 5 worst things?
Oh man, I don't know.
Shoot out a couple and I'll tell you if it hit the list, and then we're going to go through the list.
It's going to be interesting.
You're listening to the Building Stronger Agents podcast, where we interview the top solo agents, team leaders, and brokers across the country to see what makes them thrive in today's market and beyond. Welcome back, everyone, to the latest episode of the Building Stronger Agents podcast. My name is Will Penny, and today I'm interviewing Jeremy Larkin, who is an agent and team leader in Saint Geoge, Utah. He got licensed in 2005. He currently has a team of 13 agents, and they've averaged between $70 and $100 million over the last couple of years. And we're going to talk about that. And Jeremy, welcome to the show. Give me a little history on you and like what got you here, what got you in the business.
Thanks for having me, Will. And I think I got into the business like all the rest of us. From the time I was young, I dreamt about being a realtor. Wink, wink. Nobody does. I was 30 years old. I'm 49 now, for kind of context for people, right? So at 30 years old, I was working in a commercial development firm here in town. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. I loved what I was doing. This is commercial leasing, and we were doing some huge kind of office retail plazas around town for projects. And I loved what I was learning. It was really hard to work for the guy I worked with, which is really interesting because he's a neighbor. He was a like next door neighbor and a really good friend of ours, older than me, far older, like my dad's friend, and like Jekyll Hyde. And inside the building was a real estate brokerage owned by my brother-in-law, who had no idea how to run a real estate brokerage, by the way. The market was hot. And so he started an exit franchise, Exit Realty.
Exit Realty, yeah.
Yeah. And so at 30 years old, I went and got a license. And I remember it was July 1st, 2005 when I left that company. And interestingly, without flash forwarding, too far, I was really fortunate because that was July. In August, I had a friend say, do you know who Tom Ferry is? I'm like, it's Tom Ferry, And he took me to a Tom Ferry event the next month in Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. And that actually set my entire growth into motion because I thought, oh, this is a business. This isn't being a realtor, or a lot of people say realtor. This isn't being a realtor. This is a business. And I came home, had a business plan, and went for it, So, and that was 19 years ago.
How did you end up starting a team? What went through your head to make you do that?
So when I came out of that Tom Ferry event in 2005, I said, oh, you hire people. So in 6 months later, I hired my first assistant. And from early 2006 to 2009, it was always myself and an assistant.
What did the assistant do?
Every single thing I could get them to do besides go on appointments and write marketing.
So right? Unlicensed.
Unlicensed. And at some point, actually, you know what? There might have one of my assistants may have been licensed at that time, a gal named Carrie in that time.
Okay.
But I figured that one out quick, that I needed to be doing income generating, as we call them, activities.
Right. Yeah.
And then in 2010, I hired a second. So it was myself and two. And then in 2011, I hired a buyer specialist who actually worked with me for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's probably part and parcel of an interesting story of the last couple of years that we can talk about eventually, where our production went way down and it's been painful, kind of like a perfect storm. But that was 2011. And one of the things that KW always did well, and still does well, is they teach people to build teams. And,
oh, yeah. I went to Linda McKissick's 7th level, the millionaire real estate agent.
Yeah,
she was teaching classes all over the country.
Phenomenal people. Yeah, it's interesting because I actually don't have a dog in the brokerage fight. At this point, what your viewers don't see is we have our own building, actually exactly 8 blocks from our brokerage on the same road.
So you've got your own office?
That's the Tabernacle. We're on Tabernacle Street. So I own my own building. So we live in our own world, so to speak. But KW, I mean, there's I mean, they have an entire system for leading, training, hiring, recruiting, leading, training, motivating. And it was really important to learn that. And I started to,
Absolutely.
and I learned, I learned really early to stop making crappy hires. And probably the best thing I've done over the last 19 years is I hired good people, but I had to fall down first.
So let's do a little segue here. So what I did leading into this, I decided to bring ChatGPT into our little convo here. So last night I did a search. I put in my team, like what I'm looking to do. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me the top worst things about owning a team.
This is good.
All right. The top 5 worst things. And I've got their little list here, and I think it's spot on, but what do you think the top 5 worst things?
Oh man, I don't know.
Shoot out a couple, and I'll tell you if it hit the list, and then we're going to go through the list.
It's going to be interesting. This is going to be a little bit generic. I'm going to give you generic, and I'm going to go narrow. I'm going to start wide and go narrow. Managing people, in and of itself, is a core major problem.
Ding, ding, ding. Emotional drain from managing personalities.
Okay,
that was number 1 on the list.
Okay, perfect. Now that's wide. Right. Let's go narrow.
So let's stop there and let's talk about, since you hit it on the head, let's go through that. So ChatGPT, their definition, this is remarkable, by the way.
Mm-hmm. ChatGPT and I talk to Chat. I say, hey, Chat. Like, it's like we're close.
Like your buddies. Yeah. So for Valentine's Day, I actually put in our whole journey of my wife and I meeting each other at a RE/MAX office, through our engagement, through her getting her real estate license and selling 26 homes her third year in the business without the internet, to getting engaged, to getting married, to having our 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. And I had it write me a rap in the style of NWA.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, emotional drain.
And then you went ahead and hired Kendrick Lamar to voice it. That's amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Every agent on your team has different motivations, work ethics, and personalities. Managing conflicts, keeping morale high, and ensuring everyone stays motivated can be exhausting. Tell me your take on that.
Well, so
and how it impacts your
you don't know me well. Will and I talked for about 20 minutes before we started today, which was fun. It was very natural, right? Like, hey man, we'd be buddies if we were in the same city.
Yeah.
I'm highly philosophical, and I'm a student of people, and I'm a student of relationships. One of the things that I've learned, and I'm actually working on this with my team right now, is let me give you a metaphor. Is there anyone in America that doesn't know that they should go to bed earlier, eat less junk, and exercise? No.
We all know.
We have a country with, just stay with me, guys. We have a country with 65% obesity rates. And we literally, in the world, are the sickest, most medicated, most unhealthy, most obese country in the world. What does this have to do with real estate? What I've learned is that everyone knows what to do.
We all know how to get thin and rich.
Yeah, exactly. See this shirt, Place. Okay. Yeah. So we you might have heard of Place. We're partnered with Place out of Bellevue.
Yeah, I know who that is.
2 years ago.
Ben Kinney's a good dude.
He's incredible. So Ben and I are literally business partners. Above me, I can hear, you wouldn't hear it here, the 9 a.m. call with Chris Suarez, co-founder of Place. It's up every Friday. We have a call. We have training. If you want to know what I don't even know what you want to call it. You know what I mean? The Rolls Royce of training is Place. And here's what I've learned. I can give you, Will, all the training in the world. I can give you every word. I can teach you the intonation of every phrase.
What to say, how to say it.
I can tell you 30 times a day what your job is. What I've learned is people don't have an issue with knowing what to do. My obesity epidemic conversation. So when you're dealing with people don't make changes and do the thing until they're ready to do the thing. And with teams, I'm going to tell everyone out there right now, I promise you, max 1 in 3 people will actually do the thing. Max. Tom Ferry says at his events that after his events, he says, don't worry about anyone in the room competing with you, because 6% in the room will go home and actually implement. Of hiring agents, maximum 1 in 3 will do the thing, but I'm going to call it 1 in 5. And so So the biggest challenge is you kind of beat your head against the wall. You know, you walk in and it's like, Will, are you happy with your production? Will says, no, I hate it. Cool, Will. All you need to do is this. 52 weeks in a row with Will and he doesn't do it. It's really tiresome.
All it does is destroy the relationship.
And it creates this dual kind of resentment loop. And so I'll leave this thought. We can keep moving, but what I've learned, and the punchline is, most of us don't have, very few of us have a knowing problem. We have a thinking problem. And when you deal with people, what you're dealing with is and this might sound comical, but it's true. You're dealing with the time they didn't get picked for the team in 4th grade. You're dealing with the time they got rejected by the girl or the guy in the 7th grade. You're dealing with the abuse of dad or mom. I'm not being funny.
No,
you're actually dealing with thinking problems that actually were generated 30 or 40 years ago.
Dude, I've got a Porsche 911 Targa 4 GTS because Mrs. Bateman, my best friend's mom, because I didn't go to college, kept asking me, you still in real estate? You still in real estate? 30 some years later, I have a Porsche 911. It's like my battle armor so that people can see that I am in fact successful.
You're like, hey, Mrs. Bateman, selfie car.
No, but that's it. Oh, of course it does.
Yeah. So, and this is what's so hard is, a lot of the conclusion I draw is that this isn't about more training. This is about, at the end of the day, I have to continue to do my job. I have to train, lead, motivate, and sell some real estate myself.
And for others that are listening, that are thinking about starting teams, because Jeremy and I have been doing this team thing for a really long time. And number one is the biggest problem, because for years, I had a guy on my team. His name was Joe. I met him. He was great looking guy, put together. His brother made $300,000 a year. He told me that he wanted to as well. And I took him to lunch and I called my wife and I'm like, this guy is going to be a complete hit. He sold no homes. And what we do as team leaders, because inherently, if we're an agent that then wants to start a team, we clearly have the drive. Now, there are some humans that get into real estate, try to start a team, and it just completely falls apart and goes sideways because they don't have the drive. They just wanted to try it out, right? But most aren't that way. But the problem we have, in our minds, we know what the right thing to do is. We know that we need to prospect. We know that we need to take care of ourselves, whatever. And then when we see someone else, we impose our potential for them on them.
It's hilarious. Your guy, Joe, I have the guy. His name's Creed. Creed Bratton, the office. Anyway, everybody knows that name. His name's Creed. He was
called Creed out.
Yeah, he was younger than 30 years old. This is several years ago. Comes in. Guys, I'm going to make the best comment of the whole thing. Creed's a beautiful man. And by the way, I'm a heterosexual man, woman in my life. I'm like, Creed, you must be the most handsome realtor I've ever seen. Phenomenal. Literally, it's your guy. Same background. His family's successful. There's all this pressure. This pressure from his family. Well, what do I find out? He's got a serious depression problem. By the way, he's not even in real estate and hasn't been for 4 years. He doesn't have a license. He lives far away now. I'm not worried about sharing. He had everything going from showed up in a suit, said, yes, sir. Here's the other thing I've learned, Will. You almost can't predict who will be good. I stopped trying.
No, you cannot predict who's going to be good. It's not like, please take the word almost out, because I've had I only have 5 people on my team, but I've had probably 10 over the years where, as a real estate agent, we have no leadership skills. They're learned. Right? As a real estate agent, we may be great at selling homes. I sold 110 houses as a solo agent with a showing agent my best year, 2010, by the way.
By the way, that was about my best year was 17. That was the kind of volume I did on my own. Not the foreclosure years, like regular
Yeah,
homes.
I had none of those were foreclosures.
Pretty close to
We
one.
didn't have a big foreclosure market
Yeah.
where I was. But
Yeah.
anyway, that gave me, all that did was build my ego. And ego has no connection between being a good team leader.
Nope.
And so I would find these people and think that I'm going to plug them into me, but I don't know what their hopes are, their dreams are, what they want to do. So the one takeaway I would say before we move to number 2, and then and I'd like your feedback on it, is you cannot set goals for your agents. Okay, so if you want to sell 300 homes in a year, 200 homes in a year, 100 homes in a year, you can't say, okay, Susie, I think you can do 30. You're put together, you're smart, you're eloquent, because you don't, does Susie want to sell 30 homes in a year? And that's the part we rarely get to, right? So the one takeaway I would have if someone's listening and thinking about starting a team, don't ever set goals for other people. Ask them what their goals are. Ask them why they want those goals, what's important about that number, and then focus on that and hold them accountable to that. Okay. What do you think on that?
I think it's so good that I actually just took a note in Google Docs. Don't ever set goals for your people. Guys, I've done this for 19 years, right? I mean, we run a large team. I still am screwing this thing up. I'm still like, yeah, but so-and-so could. What I think is I am in complete agreement. And this thing of not knowing who's going to be good and who will be terrible production-wise. The challenge with running a larger team, the bookend of this, is that statistically speaking, if you can hire 1 or 2 agents that are really amazing and you have your small group, there's actually a disconnection. There's a law of diminishing return at hiring more. Meaning, hey, I hired 3 that are great. I'll hire 6 more. The more you hire, you see where I'm going, right? The more agents you hire, actually, the odds of having someone be productive, like that you hired a good producer, not a good person, they're great people, goes down. I know this 100%. From practice.
And the other thing is, because it was emotional drain from managing personalities. If you're on a team, Jeremy, and you're just killing it, you're doing a great job and you're taking it seriously and you're representing the team and the brand and you're coming in and you're doing your job, and I come on and I'm Creed or I'm Joe.
Yep.
Over time, you're going to feel like the team leader isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing by surrounding themselves with good people. And you're going to start resenting Joe. I'm going to start looking at you and going, or me, Will, and I'm going to say, why do you think you're so much better than me, Jeremy? I might not say it to you, but it's in my head. So there's going to be this distension. There's going to be this frustration. And then what happens is ultimately they start talking as the team leader. The good ones start talking in the locker room behind your back. And that's when it starts falling apart. Because if you bring in agents that aren't doing well and you're pushing them, which doesn't make them do better at all.
Nope.
Right? They may like work a little bit for a little bit of time, but it's not going to be a habit in their life because it's not matching their why. Okay. And I don't want to get into too much about that today because it would take an hour, but that is the problem. So you have to be very careful. So John Cheplack, do you know who John is?
Yeah, I love John.
Yeah, so Cheplack says if someone says I want to sell 4 houses, you just have to decide as a team leader, is that okay for you? You're not going to make them sell 6. Now, there's a chance that someone's going to join your team and they're going to be leveled up by the people around them. It's like rising tides raise all ships sometimes, you know. But it's a recruiting problem. You just have to recruit more people to the team to get your numbers. You can't just assign numbers to someone.
Well, and it's interesting because I love that you referenced John because John is a recruit in mass guy. And it's just interesting because that's not your philosophy, right? Like you've chosen to run a team that's this size. I chose to run a team that's this size. And I'm in this weird spot, actually, Will. I'm actually in the messy middle.
You are in the middle. 13 is like, should I go to 30?
I realize I need 5 or 10 more,
or
I need 5 less.
Uh-huh.
And I have a building that accommodates 20 more, 15
But I'll
more.
say this in case anyone on your team is listening. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be insulting.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like I have a friend of mine who's in my group. She came over. She had 12 agents on her team. She now has 30, but she had to go down to 7. You had to, in order to grow, you got to shrink because you got to get rid of all the bristly bumps, which is the low producing agents, or there might be a low producing agent but has a great attitude. You keep them.
Yeah.
Right?
I've removed 3 in the last 2 weeks. 1 was 2 weeks ago and 2 are going today. And and that's, by the way, that's my Achilles heel. My weakness is I allow them to stay way too long.
I've done the same thing. All right, let's go on to number 2. Carrying the financial burden. Even if agents...
Yeah, I was going to say, I would have said number 2 is a financial issue. It's
I'm just going to go through these so that... So even if agents are independent contractors, as a leader, you often invest in leads, marketing, and resources. When agents don't convert, the financial strain falls on you.
Yeah, this is funny. So I'm gonna pull something into this frame, and you're gonna laugh and go, "What is this?" This is a broken leg on a chair that's sitting next to me.
Oh.
Do you know who's gonna buy the chair?
You. Yeah. I thought it was a club to beat people with.
Is this hilarious? We have these beautiful like velvety chairs in our office.
Yeah, it looks like it was a nice chair.
Yeah, they're Wayfair chairs. Okay. 2 of those chairs broke. We have these rolling conference room chairs because we have 2 areas that were like training areas. They're broken. Who's going to buy those? I am. I'm sitting in this beautiful office that you don't see, but we share it at another time. And people walk in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest place in town." I pay the utilities. The team, I pay to have the janitorial. It's an interesting cross to bear because the risk that happens, I know because I live it, is sometimes it's really easy for me to get resentful. And you said something really great earlier. You said many things were great, but you said pushing them doesn't make them sell more. No, actually, all it does is builds the resentment loop between us. Because, hey, I decided to take the risk on. I decided to buy the building. I decided to run a team. Right? And every single time that I'm pushing people or angry because I have the financial burden, I'm upstream, not downstream. Energetic, I'm upstream.
So ultimately what happens is, as a team leader, if you're thinking about starting a team or growing a team, as a team leader, the agents feel, and it all depends on how we set the table. Because if we become a lead-centered team, then ultimately there's a lot of cost associated with paying for leads or generating leads. But then there's the juxtaposition between the agent wanting us to spend more money because they feel like we're the team leader. That's your job. That's why I'm on your team. But then as they get good, for whatever reason, because they're getting more leads or because they have the support or just because they're good, then they start asking for more money. So there's a direct connection between they want you to spend more money and give them more money. So then we're in a position as a team leader, and that's going to lead to number 3 in a moment, where profitability tanks. So we have to decide, are we focused on profitability or ego and just on production numbers? What your thoughts?
Well, I said I removed an agent a couple weeks ago. He was 2 years in the business. In his first year with us, he did 6 deals. In his second year with us, he did 7 deals. Well, here's what happened. This guy should have been great. And he's in his core, he's a 12 to 18 unit guy based on me knowing him. But he didn't do anything for 6 months before I removed him. As a matter of fact, he disappeared. He went home to his house, like 20 minutes from here, and actually came to the office 3 times in 6 months. And there's a whole bunch of history. Well,
did he not need to pay? He had no bills, obviously.
No. So he and his wife had a year of savings. I love that you asked. Perceptive, Will. We sat down and we talked once, twice, 3 times a lady, twice, 3 times, 3 one-on-ones. One of them was 2.5 hours. We were sitting like our training room one afternoon. I said, let's just talk. And he came to me and he said, well, you turned off these leads. And we give you a lot of money, he said.
There you go. The leads are weak.
The leads are weak. Don't even effing start me, by the way. I'm trying to keep the F-bomb out of this episode. And I said, it was one of these, I leaned back. Interesting. I said, actually, you don't give me anything.
You owe him, Jeremy.
Yeah. I said, I give you. And then I walked through. I said, do you know who pays for this? I said, you actually don't give me anything. As a matter of fact, you don't show up. And you only share when you close a deal. And I said, 68% of your business was team generated last year anyway. So this sounds like we're just beating up on agents, but.
And by the way, there's no, for those out there that are listening or will be listening, there's no walking that back. You're done at that.
You
point.
Nailed it. And I waited there was no walking it back months before, but I tried.
Both of your egos were out of the barn at that point.
Yeah. I'm like, this guy has really lost it, And I just said, you know what's interesting? We've not moved. We've been here the whole time. I literally continue to provide the same training. And this is what will happen with people. I want everyone who's listening to actually observe. I want you to observe in yourself these patterns. He said something crazy, and this is when people, and I want you to see where you do this in your life. Of all the things he said, last year, we went to the team and we got really transparent. Our production had gone from 236 deals 4 years ago to 139 last year. And
your average sale price is probably up there to
a little bit.
Some of that.
Yeah. So we went from 100 million to 70 million. But there were a list of reasons. We lost a builder client of 5 years. They went in-house. We lost a developer client of 2 years. They went in-house. Between the two of those, it was 45 to 60 deals a year of our production. Wow. Just
That's
gone.
A ton. New construction.
I had an agent who was such a sweet, sweet human. 15 transactions, 15 a year, caused so much disruption with the drama that she had to be removed. We had an agent who was 15 transactions, who was completely disengaged and a negative force in the office, had to be removed. Guys, 100 deals gone.
Just gone.
I'm in this conversation with this guy. So we sat down with the team last year and we said, guys, here's the dealio. We're going to live from a place of transparency. We're cutting some costs. And we provide lunch. Typically, a vendor provides lunch every Thursday. And I said, the weeks we don't have a vendor, it's BYOL. This is really funny, Will. It was BYOL twice in about 5 months because there was always a vendor. And as I sat with this guy who hadn't been here in 6 months, he said, and you stopped providing lunch on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
That statement summed up the entire situation. Nothing else needed to be said. Do you know, and this is why I invite us, as all of us, as speakers, as listeners, to say, when have I gotten to be that guy or gal where I have now left myself, I've left personal responsibility, I've gone outside of me. You guys stopped. It actually wasn't effing true.
Right.
And B, how could that be? Of all of the resources that we provide, that was what he said.
That's it. The free lunch.
So unless people think, oh, Jeremy's going down a drama thing with this. No, I think I'm doing an okay job with, I'm actually trying to use this as a teaching moment, right? And I've been that guy in my life. You have to come back to personal responsibility and go,
well, personal responsibility is what's behind all 5 of these.
Correct. Where am I out of alignment? Where am I out of whack with my own business, my own life, my own everything? Crazy. 100%. It's hard. These are hard things.
Number 3, which is a byproduct of number 2. Agents leaving after you've invested in them. You put in time, effort, and money into training an agent, only for them to leave for another brokerage or go solo just when they start producing. ChatGPT came up with this.
ChatGPT is, I love him, her. I call it her. So I mentioned some agents that had to go away. So Let me give you a couple more. My 11-year team member, who's still a good friend, who was 40 units a year, gone, decided she was tired of being in a team structure and just wanted to be free. My Robert, who I trained from 2017 to 2021, 75 units a year, decided he and his buddy would go start their own team.
Exactly.
Guys, like, welcome in. This is it. We deal with this.
Team leaders, you start a team, your hope. You wonder why people in the union say, okay, your goal is to lay 100 yards of concrete today. You get a hard worker in and they do 110. Two things happen. They raise your goal to 110 tomorrow, and then everyone else there goes, what are you trying to prove? And the problem is that when you've got agents on your team, if they do poorly, they blame you. And if they do well, then it was all them. Right. So back to, we're two and three tied together. This sounds like our
relationship with the higher power also. Isn't this the human condition?
Oh, yeah, you're right. But two is, here we are as a team. You start a team and you bring these agents in and you're trying to get them to be the best they can be. The byproduct of you doing that, you're going to have agents leave. And the problem is a lot of team leaders, they don't understand over time, you're not going to be able to keep unless you've got the only Zillow Flex, team in town or something like that, where they're just afraid to leave because they feel like the whole floor is going to drop out of their business. Short of something like that, if you're a team, if you're an organically strong team, like the ones that Chetlak coaches, where they're not all lead driven, where they're just providing support, training, and all of that, so that the agent can go and sell a house and it's taken over by the TC, and they go and it makes them more productive on the team, even though they get a lower split.
Yep.
But where a lot of us end up making the mistake as team leaders is the agent comes to us and they're like, well, can I get 70% on my self-generated stuff now? Or, 50% is kind of low on the realtor.com leads. Do you think we could do 55 or 60? And then we forget about what we're trying to accomplish in general, the big picture, and which is the war. And we want to win. We don't want to lose this battle. So we give them the extra commission. But then we aren't thinking about it in relationship to our business revenue and expenses. We're letting them be separated and unbundled. So we end up, when we give someone more money now, it's kind of like when you get blackmailed. Like if I get a really uncompromising picture of you, and then
nice.
Right, and then I send you a text.
And
then I send you a text and I say, give me $100 and I won't post it online.
Sure.
Well, the police tell you, if someone ever does that to you, don't give them the $100.
Don't do it, because once you give them the money, they go, well, maybe I could get 1,000.
And what happens is, these agents aren't doing it in a malicious way. They truly believe that they're just looking out for themselves and their families, and they don't think about the impact on you and on the team, because they're like, so they want to be on the team and have it be a we problem, but they don't mind asking for more money. And then you're in a position now. Am I going to stay on the path, or am I going to veer off of it and cut them a deal? And that's where so many of us go. So if you give them the 55 now, or the 65, whatever it is, 6 months from now, if they're continuing doing well, they're going to come back and ask for more. But worse than that, it goes back to my locker room conversations, because I've had that happen as well. Well, Susie said that Jackie's getting 70% now, and I'm only getting 62.
Cat's out of the bag, man.
Yep. And they do talk about you behind your back. And I see so many team leaders, they think that they're the mama bear or the papa bear. Bullshit.
Bullshit. Absolutely bullshit.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, every one of these people on your team, they're not your agents. They are human beings with their own wants and needs, and they're going to do whatever they need to do the best thing for them and their family. And if it means staying on your team, great. If it doesn't, that happens too. And
it's survival, man.
A A lot of people team leaders go mentally sideways when that happens, and they have a tough time recovering from it. Especially when you have someone, I had someone on my team a year and a half ago, $9 million producer, and she went solo, but you just have to, if you force it, you're not thinking about the energy that's created because you forced it. Because if you force it, they might stay. It's like a relationship.
It's exactly like a relationship.
Please don't leave now. I promise you I'll start not sitting in my chair all night. I promise you that we'll have date night. I promise you we'll go on more walks. But then ultimately that always fades away, just like New Year's resolutions do.
Well, and I used a phrase earlier in passing, but I want to actually repeat it. I'm doing a lot of focus right now on upstream versus downstream energy. And I'm asking myself, is this upstream? Upstream is swimming against the current, right? Or is this downstream? And I actually had a moment yesterday you said about the agents. I'm working on an incentive program that my agents don't know about, which is all conversation based. If we start to measure realtors, if we start to measure the singular leading indicator / lead measure that's going to help you sell real estate, it's conversations. Like, oh, well, I want to be on Instagram. It's conversations. I want to do open it. It's conversations.
Right.
So I was chatting with a friend of mine, Barb Dopp. She's in Boise, runs a big team like mine. A couple hundred deals. They're working on an incentive program. It's really kind of cool. They call it the 200 Club. And the 200 Club is 200 conversations a month. And there's an incentive if you have 200 conversations a month. I want everyone out there to realize that doesn't sound like a lot. I promise you, month to month, it's a lot. 10 a day, 5 days a week. Because listen, call answer rates are down, right?
Right.
So it's not giant, but it's plenty. So that's number one. So she has this 200 Club. And then there's the end of the year. It's called the Cabo Club. That's what it sounds like. But Cabo Club is a combination of conversations and closed business, because they're not taking someone who made a lot of conversations who didn't close business.
Right.
I realized something as I was talking to her. It's very downstream what she's doing there. She says, I just made it fun, and I'm no longer trying to control anyone. You want to be in the 200 Club and you get this incredible dinner with the group at the end of the month? Do it. You want to be in the Cabo Club? Do it. Okay, that's downstream. Here's upstream. Will, team, I know this. I actually am an expert at this speech. I go around here. We're not making enough conversations. We're not doing enough lead measures. We're do. You this, we that. Upstream. Does this resonate with you? This is
Absolutely.
Upstream. This is pushing against a current. So we have to, as team leaders and as human beings, start to ask the question. Michael Singer is a great author. There's a lot of people who talk about this idea of upstream, downstream. Am I upstream or am I downstream? Sometimes I'll do this upstream move. I'll get in a panic or I'll throw a shit fit about our production, and I'll go charging back into the office and put on my headset and turn on my dialer. I'm going to make calls. Very upstream. Making calls. Making calls, not upstream. Making calls like that
in an aggressive, reactionary way.
Yeah. It's trust me, the calls aren't going well.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm asking this question: am I going with or against the current? Because you have to be cautious, because it's really easy to start going, well, I don't like making calls, so that's upstream. No, the activities have to happen, whatever yours are. Because for FYI, if somebody wants to run an Instagram business and never do any cold calling, I really believe they can do it. But by the way, you would need to send 20 DMs a day to your followers. There's a whole thing you'd need to do.
Oh, yeah.
The activities have to be done. Activity is not against the current. It's more, what is the energetic state in which I'm doing the thing? It's big work for me right now, man.
Yeah. It's like when, if my wife says, you haven't cleaned off your counter, I go, fine, I'll go clean the counter off. And I go clean the counter off. So it's not the action of cleaning the counter off. It was the energy behind it. And it was done in a mean, malicious way. Right.
Very against flow.
You didn't even know what these 4 ChatGPT answers were, and you have already led us to number 4.
Okay,
Jeremy.
what is 4?
Accountability without control. You're
Yeah.
responsible for their performance, but you can't force them to work. If they slack off or don't follow systems, it reflects on your leadership, even though you can't control their daily actions. You just described number 4.
Yeah, I mean, and which goes back to the downstream idea of a fun incentive program. But you have to be cautious that you don't go, well, I set up the program. Why isn't anyone doing it? It has to be, hey, I set up the program. I hope you do it because that would be awesome for you. It would be awesome for me also. We will all win. And I'd hate to sit on Cabo on the beach without you guys. Now, I haven't deployed it yet, but I'm like, I actually am. I went into ChatGPT and compiled kind of my version. So the accountability, there's actually a version of this in all of this is real life. They call it detaching with love in relationships, right? Like, how do I, especially like if you have adult children, which we do, and say that they're involved in maniacal behavior, right? Making stupid decisions.
Right.
People who have addicted loved ones dealing with alcohol, drugs, they teach detaching with love. Well, that's what this is, Will, what you just
Love
said.
and logic. They used to do that in the Catholic schools.
How do I just love my team, support them, say, we have a system here. I deploy this training every week. You know, I talked about place. We have a place called every Friday that's like, it is as good as you would get if you went to the biggest convention in the world and they had a speaker on stage. It's every Friday. Well, guess what? Some of my people they don't give a shit. Some will, some won't. The end. Yeah.
Cleveland Clinic had which is a big employer in our area, largest employer. I have a couple of friends in my running group that are physicians there, and you get a foot pod and they measure your steps. So you have this foot pod, everyone wears it, and they measure your steps. If you get over a certain number of steps and you don't smoke cigarettes, then you get this immediate reduction in your insurance premium. Okay. It had no impact on who stopped smoking or bringing more people in. How many offices or companies, especially these tech firms, they'll have a gym and they're like, nobody uses it.
No one uses the gym.
Yeah. Because again, it goes back to the beginning. You're imposing your potential for people on themselves. And if it was that easy, you wouldn't have that everybody is broke, divorced, and overweight.
Welcome into the world right now.
And that's human beings, right? The average New Year's resolution drops off by like the 19th of January, something like that.
Well, it's visible. I mean, if you go to any gym, it's packed for 2 weeks.
Think on Facebook. I knew there was a guy 2 years ago. I got off Facebook because of it, because it made me so annoyed. This kid he had sold like 20 homes, which is fine. 20 homes is fine.
Yeah,
our average sale price in our area.
In the world of real estate, it's decent.
Yeah. So he had sold 20 homes. He made a commitment on Facebook to sell 78 homes the following year. Okay. So he's going to go from 20 to 78. Okay.
Sure.
Now, there are people that can do that. I'm following a guy on Instagram right now. It's called I Am No Longer Obese. And he's losing his day one, he weighed 478, and he's losing weight every day, and he's keeping his plan, and it's very inspiring. But he's a little speck of dust, someone that could actually go from that far on the wrong side of things to be able to keep it together and go the other way so quickly. Most human beings can't do that, right?
They won't.
Right. So putting things in front of people like teasers, like pots of gold or a gym at the office or whatever, unless you know what motivates them, then it's very arrogant to think that that's going to have any impact whatsoever.
No. And what I realize even with this conversation incentive, who it's really for is for me.
Right.
Because I realize is that funny? It's actually for me to get my sanity back and go, well, this is the program.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And who knows? We'll see how I deploy it, but I need something to stay sane.
I hear you, man. Number 5, and this is something that should be number 1 for first-time team leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Balancing your own production versus leading the team. If you're still
Yeah.
selling, it's tough to balance your own deals with mentoring agents. If you focus too much on them, your income suffers. If you focus too much on your sales, the team struggles. And I've had this conversation, lots of young agents now, and you said at your own brokerage, it seems like the pathway is to go from agent, get good, and then start a team.
That's
and most
correct.
of the time when they start the team, they're not coming from a place of like business and leadership. They're coming from a place that they think that's the next logical move because they'd like to scale, get some of their time back. And I tell a lot of agents, I have a friend, one of my good friends, he was at my company initially at Penny Real Estate years ago. And he came over after a divorce, a great guy, close friend of mine. And he had his own little mini team. So that was my 4 and his 3. That was 7, 256 transactions. Okay. So that was so I brought in.
Yeah, buddy. Big numbers.
Okay. But he came to me one day, which goes back to number 3, and said, I need you to give me the KW split or I'm leaving. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess Friday's your last day or what? Right. So anyway.
Yeah. How soon you want to go, dude?
Yeah, we're still great friends. But anyway, last year he had a team and he decided to abandon the team. Okay. And he ran his team like mine for a while, but then he was starting to grow. But last year he sold 18 million with practically no expenses, did $400,000+ in revenue, and had a showing agent.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, before people starting or before agents consider starting a traditional team, they really need to think about why. Is it for your ego? Is it because you want to be the shepherd in this sea of sheep? Is that what you're looking for? And I see so much of that. And they don't think about margins. They don't think about any of these 5 things. And then their production, they might sell 40, 50 homes a year, but then their production suffers massively because now they're because now they're all excited about motivating these agents.
It's the biggest. It's interesting. I call it a mistake, but I worked closely with these 2 developer builder clients, and one of them in particular, my business partner, Jesse, kind of worked with the other. When that happened in April and May last year, I didn't fix my own production because what needed to happen is, sadly, I just needed to old school prospect.
Get back
Something
in
had
it.
to happen to replace it quick. And I didn't.
You stepped away from your core competencies.
Yeah. And it hurt us last year. So on top of all those losses, I had the lowest year of production that I had personally had since 2006.
Because you weren't thinking about it. You already because you had a full-time job as a team leader.
You got it. And so I mentioned to Will, I mentioned to you before we started the show, I like addressing the painful stuff. And last year hurt. It hurt a lot. And you nailed it. I had a full-time job and I was distracted with all the tools and the systems and the people and the management. And one of the things that will happen.
The fixed costs from the year before.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took us until we started slashing our costs in June, July. And what did we cut? Maybe by the time we were said and done, probably cut about a third.
Wow.
And which is a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Cut about a third of our costs. But, today I'm now revisiting the lead flow, for instance, right? I turned off almost all of our paid lead, almost all of it. And now I'm like, it probably is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit. We need a little something, feed the pot, feed the kitty, as they say. But it's very much red light, green light. And I started red lighting everything in sight. And of course, what did it do? It pissed some people off, and that's a risk.
Yeah. This has been good, man. Hopefully, it won't make any difference, because when someone decides, I've got several agents that I know that are highly productive solo agents, and then they've decided to start a team, and they don't listen to me on any of this stuff. And it goes back to everything we've talked about. Once someone gets something in their head, or if they're not thinking about anything, you can't force things in people's heads, or you can't take them away.
No, and I look at that a lot like I look at sellers who overprice their property. Some sellers, this is what I train, because how Will found me, by the way, guys, if I want to plug something, I have an Instagram channel called it's Complete Realtor. Why did I even come up with Complete Realtor? I don't know, because I tried several other combinations.
Yeah, what's the actual handle so people can follow you?
Yeah, it's @Complete Realtor. Okay, just the way it sounds. So I teach, and I'm actually building out some kind of evergreen coaching modules, training modules that, less one-on-one around what I call conversational selling. And what is conversational selling? It's what I call what I teach, what I do. And
it's really good. That's why I reached out to you. I thought your content was great.
Thank you. One of my core competencies is pricing. And I train my team. I'll say, guys, this is just like the whole conversation around obesity in the nation. And you can be as good as anyone in the world at pricing, but you're still going to have some sellers who have to fall down on their face a few times to find out that they're too high. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how cool the diagrams are or how great you ask the questions. Some of them have to fall on their face.
They got to go through it.
Yeah. And a lot of agents, especially when they go out either on their own after being on a team, or they want to start their own team, they're obsessed with, I want my name on the sign. It's a strange obsession in our industry as we wrap this show up. Let me think of an analogy. Do you think a highly paid salesperson at Pfizer, let's just use a pharmaceutical rep that's making $300K a year. Mm-hmm. Do you think they sit back at lunch and go, I should have my own pharmaceutical company?
No, exactly. No.
Nope.
Well, the cost of entry is a little bit higher. The barrier of entry is higher than that.
We are very sick as realtors. Right. Obsessed. We think having our name on the sign. This is funny. My building says Larkin Group. I've told anyone who will listen, and now several more, if I could go back 20 years, I would have never called it the Larkin Group. I would have called it some neutral, the black bear. I mean, that's not a good example, but something besides Larkin, because the problem with Larkin is it's tied to me.
Yeah.
Mine's
the Penny Group, guys, and it's the same thing.
Guys, nobody cares if your name's on the sign. I promise. No. I've had my name on thousands of them. It don't matter.
No, it doesn't. All right, man. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah. Oh, you bet. This is fun. This is really good for me too, because I need to have this conversation because it helps me see some holes in how I'm operating. So. Yeah,
me too. All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully you like this episode. Subscribe and tell your friends.
Woohoo! Thanks, Will.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Building Stronger Agents podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review and share our podcast with your friends.